Hello everyone, tonight we are standing at the edge of a steaming pool surrounded by moss so thick it feels like damp velvet under your feet. The night is heavy and warm, the kind of warm that sits on your shoulders like an old cat that refuses to get up. There's a rhythm here, one you can't quite put your finger on, like the land itself is breathing slowly deeply just beneath the surface. You hear it before you see them. A chorus of frogs. Not just a few dozens, maybe hundreds, all huddled around the edges of the thermal spring. Some nestle on slippery rocks, others squat on leaves fat with condensation. Their eyes shine like wet marbles in the low light. But they're not just croaking, they're harmonizing. You can't prove it, but you swear they're tuned to the hiss of the steam. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is over there. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You crouch low watching them. The spring hisses like a tea kettle burbling lazily. You dip a finger in, it's warm but not boiling. The rocks are slick with algae, and tiny insects flit in and out of the steam. One frog hops close, bold little thing. It stares at you with mild indifference like you're the weird one. You blink first. The steam rises in slow ribbons drifting up into the moss-laced canopy. That canopy hangs low here like a great green umbrella, ferns, bromeliads, and vines, all tangled in prehistoric disarray. The frogs, though, seem perfectly at home in it. They aren't afraid of you, and they aren't afraid of the hot spring. It's almost as if they're drawn to it. There's a smell too sulfur but faint, like a match just struck. Scientists would call it hydrogen sulfide, a sign that volcanic activity still simmers beneath the surface. And this place? This spring. It sits smack in the caldera of an ancient volcano that blew its top thousands of years ago. You're walking through its bones. One odd thing, the moss. It only grows in these patches perfectly round circles around the vented water. Almost like it's listening too, forming little green ears to the Earth stories. Historians still debate whether these ancient volcanic zones influenced early myths of fire gods and whispering Earth spirits. You can see why people might believe that. The frogs begin to move. Slowly, in little shuffles and hops, they rotate clockwise around the pool. Not in panic, more like ceremony, like they've done this before. You're not imagining it right. You lean in. You try to listen. You try to figure out what's happening beneath the mossy carpet. You swear you hear it again. A thrum. A pulsing low and slow. Maybe it's your heartbeat, or maybe it's the volcano, still breathing in its sleep. Steam curls around your knees as you stand. The sound of the frogs fades but doesn't stop. They croak like a metronome. Now, an odd little lullaby in the dark. Odd fact time. Frogs don't sleep with their eyes closed. They lower their nictitating membranes, thin, translucent lids, so they're technically asleep, but they still look awake. That's unsettling, especially when you realize dozens of those half-closed eyes are fixed in your direction. You take a few slow steps back, careful not to slip. The moss squelches beneath your boots and the steam licks your cheeks with damp fingers. Somewhere above, a bird calls once and then goes quiet like it changed its mind. Back near the spring, a larger frog, its skin the color of volcanic stone, lets out a croak that cuts through the others like a conductor's baton. Everything goes still. The steam pauses mid-rise, or maybe you just stop breathing. Then they resume. Not the same pattern. A new one. It feels intentional. You think about those researchers in the Amazon who noticed frog calls changed before an eruption, but no one ever figured out why. Pressure changes, earth tremors. Some magnetic sense we can't measure yet. You're tempted to hum along. You don't. The warmth underfoot begins to shift. Not hotter, just different. Pockets of heat rising in uneven pulses now, almost like a footstep beneath the earth. You glance at the spring again. The frogs haven't moved. You kneel again, palm flat to the moss. You feel it. Just for a second. A little vibration, not enough to panic over, but just enough to make you wonder if the volcano's asleep. What exactly is it dreaming about? Maybe frogs have known all along. Maybe they've always gathered here generation after generation whispering ribbit-sized lullabies to keep the volcano from waking too soon. Or maybe they're just frogs. But you don't believe that? Not tonight? Not with that glowworm blinking 3 times in a row like Morse code from a buried age. You sit cross-legged now, the heat rising into your spine, your shoulders sinking under the weight of steam. The frogs sing, and somewhere beneath you something ancient stretches, shifts, and settles again. The frogs start their chorus again at dusk. It's not random. You swear, it starts with one bold ribbit, then a pause, then 10 more follow, each in a staggered reply like echoes playing catch-up. It doesn't matter where you turn your head. The sound wraps around you like a wet blanket, humid and constant, full of throaty baritones and whistling trills. You shuffle through low ferns, your boots damp with dew, trying not to step on anything alive. The path ahead isn't really a path, just slightly less resistant plants. The deeper you go, the louder the frogs get, like you're entering some mossy concert hall carved out by time. Here's a fun fact. Some frogs have no vocal cords. They use sacs in their throats to push air in specific ways that make those iconic sounds. You'd think that limits their options, but nope. Some species can mimic rainfall, others can sync to nearby croaks, forming a chorus that rises and falls together. They don't just make noise, they perform. And tonight, this performance is suspiciously coordinated. The tempo increases every time the wind shifts. Every time a branch above rustles, there's a corresponding rise in pitch below. You check your watch, nothing dramatic happening. No sudden breeze, no animal rustling. But the frogs croak louder. You crouch behind a termite-munched log and listen harder. The spring you left behind now just hisses faintly in the distance. But the frogs are here. Hidden in ferns, trees, under rocks. You never realized how many species there were until now. Yellow-throated, green-backed, speckled, stripeless, the kind that look like they were splattered with paint by a distracted child. They croak again. A tight pattern. You try to count the intervals but keep losing track. They sound like they're building up to something. You know how birds fall silent right before a predator appears? This is the opposite. The frogs are getting louder. You pause and whisper to no one. Should I be worried? No response except maybe from the frog sitting on a flat stone nearby, puffing out its throat sac in smug defiance. That one's a chonk. Not scientific, but accurate. It stares at you like it knows something. And then silence. Every frog in unison stops. There's a moment, just a blink's worth, where your ears ring from the absence of croaks. The kind of silence you only notice when something important gets cut off. Then a soft rumble. Not from the sky, from below. You freeze. Your feet seem to grow roots. The sound is low, like a throat clearing in the earth's belly. Not an earthquake, not really. More like the land is adjusting its spine. And just like that, the frogs begin again. A different rhythm now. Slower, heavier, like they're responding. Historians still debate whether ancient people believed frogs were divine messengers because of this kind of behavior. In some cultures, frogs were seen as weather spirits. In others, as bridge keepers between earth and underworld. Maybe that was superstition. Or maybe they noticed the same things you're noticing now. The air thickens as if the humidity has decided to become visible. Your shirt clings to your arms. You shift your weight from one foot to the other, trying not to think about the fact that the ground just hummed. And the frogs, they've gone back to their synchronized croaking like nothing happened. Another odd fact. There's a species of frog that communicates by vibrating through the ground instead of making sound. Scientists call it seismic communication. You feel like that should be relevant right now? You move slowly again. Every step is cautious. There's no path to follow, just instinct and the increasingly surreal sense that these frogs know something you don't. You pass a tree twisted from the root, up bark stained black from some long ago lava flow. A few frogs perch in its hollow eyes, glinting. They're not singing anymore, just watching. You want to ask them, is the volcano awake? Instead, you just whisper, okay, I get it, you're in charge. Another breeze tickles the ferns. The frogs reply in kind. A wave of soft croaks trails off into the trees like a ripple across a pond. You reach a clearing soft and circular, ringed with black stones warm to the touch. No frogs here. Only silence. The kind that makes you want to whisper even your thoughts. You sit on one of the stones. It exhales heat into your legs like a long sigh. Beneath you, something creaks. The kind of creak that makes you think the earth might be stretching again. You close your eyes. The frogs are still singing beyond the clearing, and though you can't see them, you know exactly where they are. It's not a language, not really, but it's something close. The frogs aren't warning you. They're welcoming you into what you don't know yet. But you're here, listening, and they know it. You're not sure why you wake up. Maybe it's the silence, or the way the stone beneath you feels suddenly colder, as if someone's pulled the plug on the warmth. You blink into the dark, no frogs. Not one. Just you, some whispering trees, and the hollow hush of our air pretending to be still. You sit up. Your back aches from the unforgiving volcanic stone, and your hands instinctively press to the mossy floor like it might hold some answer. Nothing. No rumble. No quake. Just absence. The frogs, whose rhythmic croaks had become the heartbeat of this place, are gone. Vanished, like dreams at sunrise. Odd thing about frogs, they rarely migrate far. They cling to moisture like gossip clings to small towns. If they've left, it's not for fun. It's for survival. You stand brushing moss from your legs and scan the tree line. Still nothing. Then the ground gives a little twitch, not a full tremor, just a suggestion, like a child tugging at your sleeve. You don't fall, but you definitely wobble. Leaves shake in the trees. A few branches protest with soft crackles, then silence again. You whisper, was that it? The forest doesn't answer, and then somewhere not too far ahead a branch snaps. Your heart decides it's time for cardio. You crouch low instinctively. Not from fear, exactly, more like respect. When things go quiet in the natural world, it's rarely a compliment. You move toward the noise past ferns that part without resistance. The ground here is softer, wetter. Your boots squelch as you enter what might once have been a stream bed, now just a muddy ribbon beneath tangled vines. A few frogs used to sit here, fat green ones with calluses for skin. Now empty. Another tremor. This one a little more honest, a mild jolt like the earth had a hiccup. Dust falls from the leaves above. You press a hand to the nearest tree and feel the vibration hum up through the bark. Fact check time. Volcanic quakes often begin shallow. Their tectonic tantrums close to the surface, distinct from the deep bone-rattling quakes of plate collisions. These small shivers, their warning taps. The earth is whispering before it screams. You exhale slowly. The frogs knew. They always do. Their silence isn't random. It's predictive. Like the world just changed channels and only they noticed. Historians still debate whether ancient cultures actually interpreted frog silence as omens. Some texts hint at it: priests observing croak patterns, temple ponds gone still before a tremor. No definitive proof, though. But if frogs had a secret union tonight, they'd be filing a very loud report. You trudge further uphill away from the spring toward where the soil becomes chunky and dark. Old lava fields, the kind that crumble when you least want them to. Your flashlight beam dances across jagged black formations, rock frozen mid-melt. You half expect to see ghostly frogs petrified in place, but there's nothing. Just hardened tongues of ancient fire now cool and cracked. Suddenly a gust of wind. It carries something with it, not sound but smell. Brimstone. Eggy. Heavy. The sulfur stings your nose and settles at the back of your throat. You cough once, just enough to remind your body who's boss, and then you see it. A single frog. Sitting at the mouth of a crack in the rock, it's completely still, except for the pulse at its throat. It doesn't croak, doesn't twitch, just stares at you like you're a late guest at an invitation-only wake. You inch closer, trying not to startle it, but it doesn't move. You shine your light into the fissure it's guarding. Nothing at first, just black, then a faint shimmer, steam, rising from below. The crack hisses softly, almost rhythmically. You lean closer, careful, stupidly careful. The kind of careful that usually precedes headlines like "Local Idiot Falls into Ancient Vent." But you can't help it. The hiss changes pitch. You flinch, the frog croaks. Once, the ground trembles again. You scramble back just as the fissure belches out a fresh cloud of steam. It rushes past you like hot breath. The frog vanishes into the dark, slipping into the rock like it belongs there. Which, honestly, it probably does. You cough again, vision blurred by heat and fog. But even in the haze, you can make out the trail, the faint line of moist footprints leading from the crack away into the forest. Not yours, not human. You follow. Of course you follow. What else are you going to do? As you walk, something clicks into place. The frogs weren't afraid. They were preparing. This isn't chaos, it's choreography. The earth is stirring. And the frogs, they already know the beat. You follow the footprints into thicker brush, ducking under low-hanging vines that brush your forehead like someone too familiar. The air is heavier now, wet and smelling of clay, sulfur, and something that feels old. Not moldy old, memory old. Like the breath of something that's been waiting to exhale for a few million years. The mud here is rich and deep, like pudding made by a vengeful god. It sucks at your boots with every step, complaining in squelches. You slip once and catch yourself on a tree root which pulses faint heat, residual volcanic warmth maybe. Or something deeper. Either way, your palm tingles. You look down. Embedded in the mud is a shape. A footprint. 3 toes. Wide. Deep. Not human. Not recent. You crouch and run your fingers through the edges. The mud is dry, crusted on top, but damp underneath. Like the track was preserved, not imprinted today, but kept intact beneath protective layers. Could be from a bird. Could be from something older. Here's your historical fun fact. Volcanic mud called lahar, when it's flowing, is excellent for preserving footprints. Whole trackways of dinosaurs have been found frozen in time, captured as they fled eruptions. You're standing in nature's casting studio. More prints appear as you move. Some partial, some nearly perfect. A fossilized parade across this ancient floodplain left behind by things long gone. And suddenly, you get this weird feeling, like you've stepped into a memory that isn't yours. The frogs are gone, but their ancestors were here. And so were others, thunder lizards. Beasts that walked through steam and ash like it was just another Tuesday. You picture it, a herd of panicked creatures skidding through the mud trying to outrun fire. Small ones darting between their feet. The smell of scorched ferns, the hiss of steam cooling on scales. You shake it off, but the image lingers. Then movement. To your left, a quick shuffle, just enough to stop your breath. You swing your flashlight around and catch the gleam of 2 eyes in the dark. Frog eyes, low to the ground, watching. Another joins, then another. They're back, not singing, not running, just watching from the underbrush. You speak softly. Nice of you to join me. No croak in reply, they just blink. The ground beneath your feet shifts, barely. A gentle tilt like the earth stretching beneath its blanket. You glance ahead and see something unexpected: stones. Carefully stacked. Not natural, not random. A small cairn, maybe knee-high, balanced on a flat rock, embedded in the mud. You step closer. The cairn is dark with moss encrusted in mineral residue, but its edges are still sharp. Someone or something stacked these with intent, and recently, historians still debate whether Prehistoric humans settled near volcanic zones out of necessity or reverence. Some claim they feared the volcanoes, others say they worshipped them, built shrines to the breathers of flame and keepers of underground stories. You could be standing in such a place now. The cairn doesn't answer, but the mud does. It bubbles. Right in front of the stones, a pocket of gray-brown sludge gurgles up burping steam and the faint smell of minerals. You step back instinctively. The frogs don't move. A new sound joins the hush, dripping. You look up. No rain, just condensation sliding off massive fern fronds and pooling in wide green leaves. But the pattern is off, too regular, too rhythmic. Drip, pause, drip, drip, long pause, drip, eep. You feel like you're listening to punctuation marks. The frogs suddenly shift. In perfect synchronicity, they hop one pace to the left. It's comical, but also unsettling, like watching backup dancers follow invisible choreography. Odd fact, frogs don't have true ears. They hear through vibrations in their skin and bones. When the world starts whispering, they're the first to hear it. You realize the cairn isn't alone. Farther back, partially swallowed by brush, is another, and another beyond that. A trail. A breadcrumb path of moss-covered stacks stretching toward a distant slope of cooled lava rock. The frogs are lined along it like sentries. You follow. The mud changes texture. Less clingy now. It's drier here, crumbly, like the topsoil remembers being scorched. You kneel and scoop some in your palm. It falls apart in flakes, but beneath it the earth is darker. Rich with minerals, but unnaturally quiet. There are no insects, no birds, just frogs. Always frogs. You climb the incline. At the top, the cairns stop. So do the frogs. They sit at the ridge facing the same direction. You follow their gaze. Below you lies a bowl-shaped depression. A hollow crusted with basalt and tufted with spiky grass. In the center, a cracked pit of pale yellow clay. It steams faintly like it's remembering how to boil. You realize you're standing on the rim of an ancient lava lake. Not active, not yet, but maybe dreaming again. One of the frogs lets out a long, slow croak. Not loud, not scared, just deliberate, like a final verse to a lullaby. The others join. The chorus returns. Soft, low, slow. The earth hums beneath your boots in harmony. And you listen surrounded by mud older than your species, while amphibians in chorus read you the subtext of the land. You descend into the basin slowly, your boots crunching on the crusted remains of ancient lava, each flake breaking like burnt pastry underfoot. Steam rises from fissures ahead, thin and white like ghostly fingers, writing in cursive across the dawnless sky. You glance around. The frogs haven't followed. They sit still silhouettes against the ridge, not moving, not croaking. You are alone with the old heat. The floor of the basin is uneven. Some parts give under your weight as if the earth hasn't fully made up its mind about being solid. You step over a spiraled crack that coils like a fossilized snake and make your way toward the central pit, the place where the clay steams. The glowworms are there. At first you think you're imagining it. Little blips of blue-green light flickering across the fissures. They move slowly like ink drops in water, trailing faint, luminescent strings behind them. You kneel, breath fogging in the humid air, and watch as one traces the line of a small crack. Then another joins it, then 5. And suddenly the basin becomes a canvas. The glowworms trace the contours of the ground, weaving between fractured plates and sulfurous vents. They move in looping patterns, no randomness, no chaos. It's as if they're following a script that was carved long before the first human blinked at the stars. You whisper to no one, "Is this language?" The glowworms don't answer, but the lines they form begin to resemble something unsettlingly familiar. Spirals, lines, branching forms. One curves outward like a fern frond. Another forms something dangerously close to a fingerprint. You stare in silence, wondering whether you've just invented meaning or stepped into a very old one. Historians still debate whether early humans interpreted natural patterns. Tree rings, cloud shapes, even the paths of insects as messages from gods or the world itself. Tonight you lean toward the gods, or maybe the volcano, or maybe they're the same thing. The ground exhales beneath you a low thermal sigh. Steam gushes up from the central pit with a gentle hiss, forcing you to step back. The glowworms scatter, but only slightly, as if merely startled rather than alarmed. Their lights return quickly, settling again into gentle movements across the fractured ground. You take a deep breath. The sulfur tang stings a little, but mixed into it now is something floral. Unexpected. You look around. Small yellow flowers, volcanic primroses dot the edges of the basin. Odd fact. There are species of flowers that only bloom in a mineral-rich soil near geothermal vents. They grow where nothing else will, drinking from the warmth of the earth like tea. These here seem almost luminous, and nestled between them more frogs, small ones, bright green with bulbous eyes, silent, still, watching, always watching. They're ringed around the pit, like students around a chalk circle, like worshippers, or maybe just old souls listening to bedtime stories told in temperature and time. One glowworm zigzags past your boot. You follow it with your eyes watching as it rejoins the others along the edge of a wide crack. This one isn't steaming, just pulsing gently. You crouch and peer inside. There's movement. Deep within, red-orange, it's faint. A heartbeat of color far, far below. Not lava, not yet. But something warming up. You sit on a nearby stone and feel it again, the slow rhythm of the earth preparing a sentence. The frogs croak once unified. A single note, then silence, then. Your fingers trace the rim of the stone. It's smoother than the others. Polished even, and carved. You run your palm along its edge until you feel the indentations. A spiral, a circle within a square. And something else, a groove in the shape of a frog's foot. You're sitting on a story, literally. Historians still debate whether petroglyphs in volcanic regions are tied to geothermal behavior or simple artistic expression. Some say these were maps. Others think they were warnings. A few even argue they were lullabies carved into stone, a way to pacify something too big to fight. The frogs start again. Not loud. A soft ripple, like warm breath through a reed flute. You close your eyes and listen. This isn't just communication, it's composition. The frogs sing. The glowworms write. The earth hums. And you ridiculous humans sit in the middle of it barefoot now, because why not your boots tossed aside so your souls can feel the story too? You realize something wild. You're no longer thinking in minutes or miles. You're thinking in layers, in thermal shifts, in vibrations. The volcano beneath you isn't dead. It's dreaming. And the frogs, they're the bedtime choir. You're still seated on the warm stone when the first real gust of sulfur rolls up from the pit. It's thicker this time, layered like soup gone wrong, and it carries a sound barely audible, just a murmur. A hiss with too many syllables. You sit still, not because you're brave, but because your body seems to forget how to move. The breeze settles across your face like a damp cloth. It's humid, rank, and oddly comforting. Almost like being rocked by something ancient and blind that doesn't know you're there but wouldn't mind if it did. And then it happens. The wind hums. Not the regular howl of air, but a tone clear low vibrating through your molars, a one-note lullaby. You place a hand on the stone again. It's pulsing. Not fast, not panicked. A calm, repetitive thrum, like a mother tapping her fingers on a cradle. The frogs respond. This time, the croaks have rhythm, a 4-beat cadence. One low note, then 2 high, then a pause. Again. You want to dismiss it. You want to say it's just frogs doing frog things, but that's a lie, and you know it. They're harmonizing with the vent's breath. They're in sync. You whisper, "What is this place?" Of course, no one answers, but the frogs pause as if to let the question sink into the mud. Fun biological fact. Frogs can detect vibrations through their lungs. They have a secondary sense, a kind of pressure sonar. When one vibrates in just the right way, others pick it up without needing to see or hear it. Like underwater Wi-Fi with legs. And here, in this gas-humming, high heat-breathing crater, the frogs are getting full signal. You glance at the clay pit again. It's bubbling now, small, polite blips, like a polite volcano clearing its throat before giving a speech. Every so often, one of the glowworms flickers too close and gets caught in the updraft, carried momentarily before darting away like a spark. The frogs stay put, not a single one retreats. You decide to hum. Quietly. You mimic the vent low and long. The frogs don't respond, but one of them tilts its head slightly in your direction, like you've said something grammatically incorrect in a sacred dialect. Another gust rises. This one carries a scent not just sulfuric, but warm, like the air above a fresh loaf of bread if that bread was made from ash and half-remembered heat. You inhale it deeply. It doesn't hurt, it almost feels good, dangerous but good. Historians still debate whether sulfuric vents were considered sacred in prehistory or simply feared. Some ancient peoples lived on volcano slopes, intentionally believing the vents were mouths of gods offering breath, not warnings. Others built stone markers around them, not to block them, but to listen better. You're not sure which mindset makes more sense right now. But you definitely feel like you're in the middle of something sacred or stupid, maybe both. You crawl closer to the pit. The edge is brittle. Flakes of clay crumble beneath your fingers. The heat rises fast now, warming your face like a campfire turned inside out. You look down. A glowing crack. Just one. A thin orange thread at the very base. It pulses. Not constantly, once every minute or so, like a heartbeat slowed by centuries. And then croak, loud, close. You jump. A frog has moved. Not many, just one. A yellow one small as a teacup. It hops forward onto a flat rock at the pit's lip. It puffs out its throat, then croaks again, loud, confident, musical. The others answer. A full chorus. Not chaotic, not wild, measured. It's music. It is a lullaby. They're singing to the volcano. You sit back stunned. All your skepticism slowly softens like cooled lava. You think about what lullabies are: repetitive, soothing, often nonsense, but always full of intention. Meant to calm, to bond, to reassure something bigger, newer, or more volatile than you. And what is a volcano if not that? You look around. The frogs are still singing. The vent hums back. The Earth's lullaby plays on. Odd fact. There's a frog species in Central America that sings to lull its own heart rate down at night. Self-soothing, basically. The idea that frogs could project that instinct outward towards something much larger suddenly doesn't feel ridiculous. It feels inevitable. You close your eyes and just listen. There's rhythm in the gas. There's harmony in the mud. There's intent in the frogs. It's like the whole basin is a great breathing gramophone. The kind that doesn't play vinyl but tectonic drift and frog prayers. And for a moment you feel it. Not peace exactly, but permission. The volcano will sleep a little longer, and the frogs will keep singing just in case it stirs. The next morning, if you can call it that, because the sky never really brightens here, you wake to the feeling of being watched. It's subtle, not sinister. Like when someone stands in a doorway too long waiting for you to notice. You blink away the dampness and sit up slowly. Steam still rolls from the vent. The sulfur's a little sharper now, like burnt matches left too close to your pillow. But it's the eyes you see first, tiny, round, unblinking. Frogs, not just a few dozens arranged in a semicircle at the edge of the pit. None of them croak. They're just looking. You sit quietly, trying to act like this isn't the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you. One frog blinks. That's the most animation you get. It's like waking up in the middle of a choir during the intermission. Then the pit gurgles again. Not violently. Just a long, low glug that vibrates the soles of your feet through the rock. And that's when you notice the blinking above. You tilt your head and squint at the canopy. Hidden there, peeking from hollowed-out tree trunks wedged between thick leaves are more frog eyes. High up, watching, unmoving. They're in the trees, they're in the rocks, they're above and below. A full three-dimensional audience. You mutter, "Did I miss the rehearsal?" Still no croaks. You stand up slowly. The warmth under your feet is less pronounced now. The humming vent has quieted. Maybe it's resting, or maybe it's listening. You look around, tracing the ridges of the caldera with your eyes. The frogs remain where they are, but their attention has shifted not just to you, but toward a spot in the trees where the steam drifts upward in thin, trembling lines. Something's coming. Here's your off-topic fact for the day. There's a species of frog that will climb into a tree hollow during dry seasons and seal itself inside with mucus. It essentially makes a sleeping bag of its own spit and naps through bad weather. Maybe that's what these guys are doing now, except nobody here's sleeping. They're waiting. You make your way toward the source of the rising steam. The ground is less muddy here, baked hard by past heat. Ferns bend away politely, revealing a narrow path lined with glossy black stones. You spot one frog perched halfway up a tree trunk, barely clinging to the bark. Its throat pulses, but no sound comes out. You reach the base of a tall fig tree twisted by time and temperature. There's a hollow midway up, obscured by vines, and in it more eyes. Not frog eyes this time. Something else. Something wider. You freeze. The eyes blink, slowly. No movement beyond that. Then a soft exhale like wind through a flute. It's not an animal, you realize. It's the tree itself. Somehow a vent in its base has split upward into the trunk. Hot air exits through this natural flute hole, whistling with each gust. And the frogs, they've perched around it like musicians' heads cocked, as if tuning to its key. You crouch and press your ear to the base. It sings, not clearly. Just a whisper of notes, rising, falling, like breathy syllables in a language that predates teeth. And then a croak, just one, from above. It echoes down. And for the first time, you hear it a reply. The tree answers. You step back slowly, hands slightly raised, unsure if you're eavesdropping on some sacred exchange. Another croak, another exhale. Rhythm, call and response. This isn't chaos, it's choreography again. But now it's vertical. Above and below, tree to vent, frog to tree. Historians still debate whether natural sound patterns wind through caves. Water through reed beds inspired early forms of music or ritual language. Standing here, you don't debate. You hear it. The frogs are having a conversation with their ecosystem, and you're just the wide-eyed human holding your breath, hoping not to interrupt. You sit on a fallen trunk nearby. Warmth radiates through the wood, a remnant of volcanic breath still pulsing underground. The frogs resume their soft chorus, not frantic, not fearful, something closer to reverence. One frog hops to a small stone beside you, no bigger than your hand, with skin like damp moss. It croaks once, low. You echo the sound badly, embarrassingly. The frog doesn't flinch. It just blinks again. Maybe that was polite applause. Maybe it was pity. Then you notice something in its posture. It's not looking at you. It's looking beyond you. You turn. In the distance, the vent you slept beside is now glowing faintly. Not bright, just the smallest orange pulse under the clay. A heartbeat returning from slumber. And the frogs above their heads are turning in sync. They see it. Odd fact. Some frogs can detect infrared. They can sense heat with a sensitivity almost rivaling snakes. That little glow you just noticed, they probably saw it minutes ago. You exhale slow and steady. The air is hot, yes, but not angry. Not yet. The volcano isn't waking up. It's stirring, shifting its weight under the blankets, rolling over with a sigh. And the frogs, they're singing it back to sleep. You take a few slow steps back from the glowing vent. Not in fear, not quite, but with the same carefulness you'd use if someone handed you a newborn dragon and said, "Don't drop it." The glow isn't growing, but it's definitely present. Like the volcano isn't awake, but it knows you're there. Then tap. You pause. Tap, tap. There it is again. Not a sound from the trees or the vent. It's coming from the ground. Tap, tap, tap. You crouch, hand to the stone beneath your feet. Nothing. The vibrations aren't strong. You can't feel them so much as imagine them. It's like the tapping is echoing inside your bones instead of under them. Tap. Pause. Tap, tap. Then silence. You stand again, eyes sweeping the tree line. There at the base of a rock slab, a frog is perched. It croaks once and then hops and taps its hind legs against the ground. 2 taps. Then it sits perfectly still. You wait. Another frog, this one nestled in a crook of a twisted root, mimics it. 1 croak, 2 taps. You say softly, "Is this a code?" Now they're all doing it. Not frantically, but deliberately. Each frog croaking once and then tapping the earth twice, always twice. The rhythm loops through the clearing like someone's knocking on the world's door from every angle. Tap, tap, tap. Historians still debate whether animal behavior like this was used as a kind of natural seismograph by early people. There are stories, some real, some poetic, of villagers predicting earthquakes by listening to frogs, snakes, even ants. Whether it's truth or myth you're watching, the idea takes form right in front of you. You kneel near the first frog and copy its movement, tapping 2 fingers softly against the rock. It doesn't look at you, but it stops tapping, then croaks again. Almost like it's acknowledging your participation or grading your performance. Another gust of sulfur-laced air moves through the basin. The heat seems to pulse in waves now, like the volcano is sleeping just beneath a thin blanket of cooled stone. Not boiling, but brooding. Then you remember something. Back at the thermal spring, the frogs had a pattern, one that changed right before the tremor. You replay the sounds in your head faster, croaking sudden silence, then the soft jolt. These taps, they're not random. They're before something. A ritual or a rehearsal. You shift and notice something etched into the rock beside your foot. Not letters, symbols. 2 concentric circles joined by a line, then what looks like 3 small dots underneath. It almost resembles a face. Or maybe a volcano mid-eruption, 2 calderas, 1 open mouth. You touch it, it's smooth, old. Then another tremor. Not big, just enough to make the leaves above you shiver. The frogs go still. Then tap tap. 1 brave frog resumes the rhythm. Then another joins. Soon the clearing is full of soft, gentle percussion, like tiny feet drumming secrets into the soil. Odd fact. Frogs don't just croak. Some species communicate through substrate tapping, vibrating the ground to signal mates or warn of danger. In dense, noisy forests, this form of ground talk travels better than sound. Basically, it's frog Morse code. And what are they signaling now? The frogs fall silent, all at once. You don't move. Even your breath feels too loud. Then far off, maybe a mile, something shifts. Not thunder, not an animal, a dull, rolling groan. Like the earth just tried to roll over and found a bad joint. You feel it before you hear it. The ground under your feet rises slightly, not sharply, not violently. Just lifts, and then settles, like the crust inhaled and exhaled. The frogs croak together loud and fast, then 2 taps, again 2 taps. You find yourself doing it too. Tapping the stone. Croaking softly just to hear yourself in the chorus. And that's when it hits you. You're inside the ritual now, not just observing. You are part of the rhythm. 1 frog hops close. Yellow, slightly grumpy looking. It taps once deliberately and stares at you. You raise your hand, 2 taps. It waits, then hops away without further judgment. You think, okay, maybe that was the oral exam. The steam rises a little thicker now. The light from the vent pulses slightly faster. Still not dangerous, not alarming, just present. But the frogs are behaving differently now, more alert, as if they're monitoring something invisible to you. You scan the clearing again. Still no birds, No insects, just frogs and heat. And you. You sit back on the warm rock and close your eyes for a moment. The tapping continues. The croaks shift between silence and melody. It's a pattern now, a sequence of signals and pauses that loop like a song with no chorus. The volcano hasn't erupted, but something is happening, and the frogs, those small, squishy percussionists, have noticed. You're not just listening anymore. You're learning the language. Tap, tap, tap. You climb back to the ridge, careful not to break the cadence. Tap, pause, tap, tap. It's in your bones now, like a tune you don't remember learning but can't stop humming. The frogs accompany you, croaking low, tapping gently, and then going silent in the same precise rhythm. Every step you take is mirrored by a half-dozen tiny dancers hidden in bark and brush. But then the landscape shifts. You step into a clearing that feels wrong, not in a haunted forest way, not wrong like cursed bones or creepy dolls nailed to trees. Just still, too still, like the forest has hit the mute button. No croaks, no taps, just ash. The ground here is blanketed in it, fine gray and weightless. It floats with every step you take, dusting your boots and ankles like soft snowfall. Even the trees are quieter. Their leaves dulled by soot, their trunks lined with fine gray outlines where the wind once blew more fiercely. This is the ash zone. You know it instinctively, even if no sign says so. It's the place where the eruption last left its signature. A long, slow exhale of heat and debris, that buried sound. You walk slower now, not out of fear, but respect. This isn't a place for singing, it's a place for remembering. Odd fact. Volcanic ash, once cooled and settled, becomes an incredible sound dampener. Its microstructure absorbs acoustic energy. That's science speak, for you can whisper your secrets here and the trees won't gossip. The frogs seem to know this too. None are visible, none are audible. It's not abandonment, it's reverence. They've chosen not to croak here. You crouch low and run your fingers through the ash. It's warm still. Beneath the top layer, the soil is glassy and cracked lava rock turned to powder. You find a fragment of something bone, maybe gnome. Wood petrified, blackened and light as air. You pick it up. It breaks in half with a soft crack, hollow, empty. You think of ancient people standing here before it was safe, watching the sky rain fire. Were there frogs then? Did they hide beneath the roots and croak warnings? Did anyone listen? Historians still debate whether early warnings about eruptions came from human observation or from interpreting animal signs. Some ancient communities knew to evacuate days before visible signs. Others never had the chance. Either way, the frogs were always ahead of us. You stand and keep moving. The ash crunches differently than soil, less squish, more whisper. It feels like walking on paper dreams. Then you see it. In the middle of the clearing, a stone basin, circular, carved maybe, or just shaped by luck and erosion. Inside it, a ring of melted black rock, a burn mark, a memory. You walk to the edge and sit. The stone's warm but not unkind. From this spot, you can see the entire perimeter of the ash field. And one by one, like guardians standing at a funeral's edge, the frogs begin to appear. Not in the ash, around it, perched on mossy logs just outside the burn, hidden under ferns, watching again. You hear the first croak. It echoes oddly. The ash swallows, it makes it feel like a thought rather than a sound. Another croak joins, then a tap, faint, careful. The frogs won't enter the clearing. That much is clear, but they'll mourn it. A soft breeze kicks up, lifting a veil of ash into the air. For a moment, it blurs your vision. The world goes gray and slow. In that haze, you see shapes, not real ones, but memory shapes. Tall, slow-moving creatures, massive. Four-legged, long-necked shadows lumbering toward safety as fire rains down. And between them, tiny hoppers, frogs. Running, hiding, surviving. You blink and the ash settles. Just trees now, just quiet, you whisper aloud. Did you remember them too? A frog croaks once, low, final. You walk the rim of the clearing slowly. At the far edge, a fallen tree has grown a skin of green over its burned frame. Life is returning inch by inch. A single vine flower blooms in the ash, bold, yellow, almost defiant. You kneel and touch the soil beneath it. Warm. Alive? You tap once, then twice. From the tree hollow above you, a tap answers. The ash may be quiet, but it's not forgotten. And neither are the frogs. That night, the dreams come. You don't lie down exactly, you just kind of fold into the curve of a half-buried root, lulled by the warmth of the ground and the soft hiss of vapor drifting from some unseen fissure. Your body goes still before your thoughts do. And somewhere between the ash and the breath of stone, you slide sideways into memory that isn't yours. You dream of giants. Not the kind with clubs or castles. The kind with jaws wide as rivers and skin the color of the dawn storm. Massive frogs, prehistoric ancestors to these tiny singers. Hulking damp beasts squatting in swamps the size of countries. In your dream, they croak not with sound, but with tremors. Each call shakes the trees. The water ripples in perfect circles. Small mammals flee and the sky dims a little with every syllable. It's not language exactly, but it's communication. A warning system, a bedtime story to the volcano itself. You watch one massive frog perch on a red-hot boulder like it owns the world. It closes its eyes, and the lava simmers quieter, like even molten rock knows better than to interrupt. Then you're underwater. Not deep, just enough to feel weightless. The frogs are here too smaller now, but still dream-sized. They float in lines, their pulses syncing with the rise and fall of the tides. You see them hop onto floating logs, ride steaming rivers of ash, and blink knowingly at the stars above. And somewhere under it all, something pulses, not threatening, just ancient. The volcano dreaming too. You wake with the taste of warm clay in your mouth, and the sound of a slow echoing croak fading into the mist. The dream evaporates, but the sense lingers. Not just that something happened, but that you were shown something. Offered a story not in words but in rhythms, heat, silence, survival. Odd fact. There was once a frog species the size of a beach ball. Beelzebufo ampinga lived in Madagascar. Heavy-boned and wide-mouthed, it could eat baby dinosaurs. You wonder if its croak could shake trees. You sit up brushing ash from your shoulders. The frogs are still around, scattered across the edge of the clearing, perched in meditative silence. One stares directly at you. You nod. It doesn't blink. The earth beneath your palms is warm. No tremor now, no breath, just the steady heartbeat of something resting. You press your ear to the dirt. You think you hear it, or feel it, or invent it. Hard to tell anymore. You stand stretching the stiffness from your spine. Your footsteps are soft in the ash. You walk without thinking northward toward a trail carved not by people but by time and runoff. The ash thins as you go, replaced by darker soil and low ferns. Then you hear it again. The frogs, croaking now, not frantically, a tempo you recognize, long note, short, short. The lullaby returns, and it's echoing. You reach a rise cresting a slope where the trees bend like they're trying to whisper to the rocks. From here, you see it all: valleys, vents, and far-off slopes kissed by soft steam. And somewhere below, in a narrow gully, frogs of every size and color are gathered. Hundreds. They're not in panic. They're in formation. Rose clusters perched along rocks and tree roots like a living amphitheater. And in the center, nothing. A bare patch of soil, dark, soft-looking, almost like a stage. The chorus pauses. One frog hops to the center. Green, medium-sized, perfect posture. It croaks, once, loud, then taps. 2 beats, and then the rest follow. Hundreds of frogs. 1 note, 2 taps, a sound you've heard before now magnified into something vast, reverent. You sit on a boulder and watch as the ritual unfolds. No chaos, no shuffling, just rhythm, just breath. Historians still debate whether certain animal gatherings should be classified as ritual behavior or instinct. At what point does repetition become religion? What counts as worship when there's no temple? Tonight, the frogs don't need a temple. They have heat, ash, and rhythm. And maybe that's enough. You close your eyes. Listen to the waves of sound. Feel the pulse of the ground. The volcano sleeps and the frogs sing to keep it that way. Not out of fear, out of responsibility. You descend slowly into the gully. One cautious step at a time, boots pressing soft impressions into the dark soil. The frogs don't flinch, don't scatter. They just continue their slow, measured rhythm. Croak, tap, tap, croak, tap, tap, like a metronome made of lungs and tiny feet. And then the vent cracks. Not loudly, it does not explode, it sighs. A long, drawn-out exhalation from somewhere deep beneath the gully floor. You feel it first as a vibration in your calves, a murmur in the soles of your boots. Then comes the sound, a hollow, bubbling moan that doesn't rise. It folds outward like the volcano is trying to form a syllable. You freeze. The frogs don't. In fact, their rhythm intensifies. Still slow, still deliberate, but deeper now. The bass section has joined in those bullfrogs with throats like kettle drums. The sound thickens, echoing in layers through the bowl-shaped space, each croak slipping into the crackle of steam like punctuation. And then it happens. One of the nearby fishers begins to speak. Not in words, not in lava, in syllables. Tiny pops and hisses perfectly spaced, like the vent is mimicking the frogs. You laugh once, quietly, nervously, then cover your mouth. No one told you the earth could hold a conversation like this. You crouch beside a stone and place your hand flat on its surface. It's warm, yes, but more than that, it's vibrating. Not a rattle, not a tremor, a pattern, just like before. Crack, hiss, pause. Crack, hiss, hiss. It's not just heat, it's rhythm. And the frogs are answering in kind. Historians still debate whether ancient peoples perceived steam vents as oracles. There are surviving stories, half myth, half manual, of tribes building stone circles around fissures, not to trap them, but to listen. To tune into the noise of the world's core like you'd tune a string instrument. You're starting to believe those stories weren't so metaphorical. Across the gully, a frog climbs a flat rock in slow motion. It spreads its limbs slightly, lifts its throat, and lets out a long, droning note. The crack nearby responds with a sharp pop. Then silence. Then croak, then crack. Again, again. You lean back, resting against the slope's base. The steam that rolls past you is denser now, cooler even, condensing into thin ribbons that drip from overhanging leaves. Drip, pause, drip, drip. The sound joins the others, a percussive whisper from above. Everything is communicating, and it all sounds like lullaby. Odd fact. Some frogs actually do communicate with cracks and creaks from their environment. The concave-eared torrent frog, for instance, uses both sound and environmental feedback in noisy rivers, essentially singing with the water. You imagine it would be very happy here. You tilt your head back, eyes half-lidded, just listening. Somewhere in the fog, a smaller frog leaps onto your boot. It doesn't croak, just sits there like a tiny green judge with legs. It shifts its weight. You shift yours. An unspoken agreement. The gully vents again. Another pop, louder now. Not dangerous, not yet. Just awake. The frogs don't panic. They double down. Their chorus grows more elaborate, more coordinated, like they're raising the stakes. Like this is the verse where the lyrics matter most. You can't help but join in. Tap, tap, tap. Your fingers against the stone echo faintly in the gap between croaks. You hum low and clumsy, but the frogs don't seem to mind. The steam doesn't shun you. The crackling vent doesn't flare in offense. You're part of this now. You glance around, watching the frogs position themselves. Each rock, each ledge, each hollow root, they know where to be. As if rehearsed, a living amphitheater tuning itself to seismic breath. You whisper, "This isn't a warning. This is a conversation. And maybe you're right. Another hiss, another croak, another gentle tremor that doesn't shake but stirs. The frog's rhythm slows. Their voices grow softer. Some shift positions. A few go silent. The steam coils lazily now, wrapping the scene in warmth and haze. It's as if the volcano's gone quiet again, not sleeping but listening intently. You rest your hand on the ground, closing your eyes. For a moment, the earth feels like a chest rising and falling in slumber. A colossal creature taking deep, slow breaths, soothed by a lullaby sung in amphibian. You lie back in the ash and moss arms at your sides. The frogs hum on. The cracks whisper, and you listen. Between syllables of heat and song, you understand something even if you'll never be able to say it out loud. This is the bedtime story, and the frogs. They are its punctuation. The steam changes. It's not hotter, just heavier, like it's decided to lie down for a while. It clings to the trees and your skin, thick enough to draw shapes in with your fingers. You wave your hand in front of your face and can almost carve a path through the mist. And then you hear it. Rain. No thunder, no buildup, just a soft pinprick pattern on the leaves above, light as a whisper. It falls delicately, the kind of rain that doesn't soak, just dapples everything with suggestion. The frogs respond immediately. They emerge. From roots, from holes, from tree trunks they'd seemingly melted into. Tiny ones with translucent skin. Big ones with knobby shoulders and ancient eyes. They crawl from the forest in every shade of moss and rust. And they're joyful. You can feel it in their movements. They bounce, hop, and shimmy over the rocks. They don't look nervous. They look excited, like the orchestra finally got its cue. Here's the odd twist, though. You look up through a break in the canopy, no clouds, none. Just faint stars peeking through the vapor. That's not rain, not really. It's condensation. The steam from the vents is rising, cooling against the leaves above and falling back down in gentle droplets. An illusion of weather. The volcano playing meteorologist. The frogs don't seem to care. They've been fooled, but they want to be fooled. Because this moment, the rain, is a ritual trigger. A signal that the time to emerge has come. You sit on a slope of slick rock watching the frogs fan out into the gully. Their croaks shift in pitch and pattern, no longer in the lullaby rhythm. This is different, lighter, higher. It's celebratory, like applause after a good story. Or maybe an encore. One particularly chunky frog slides off a mossy log and belly flops into a puddle with no shame. You laugh. It makes no effort to leave the puddle, just wiggles once and lets the misty rain fall over its back. Odd fact. Frogs absorb water through their skin, not by drinking. Many species sit in hydration puddles like this one, letting moisture soak into them like sponges with legs. They can't resist the cue even if the rain isn't real. You lean back and catch a few drops on your face. They're warm, sulfur-flavored, sure, but comforting, like a geothermal kiss on the forehead. The frogs gather closer to the vent now. The steam has lessened, as if it too is pausing to enjoy the moment. The cracks in the stone glow faintly, no longer pulsing, just resting. Like the volcano has listened long enough and is now content. The frogs begin a new rhythm. No more tap-tap, no more silence and thunder patterns. This one's a hum, a sustained musical drone that rises and falls together. Not quite harmony, not quite discord, just real. Like the sound of something ancient learning how to purr. Historians still debate whether ancient cultures believed nature played music, or if they imposed human patterns onto it to feel less alone. Some petroglyphs depict spirals and waves that match the sound vibrations of early flutes. Coincidence? Maybe. But you hear it now. You feel it. You look around. The frogs don't need approval. They're in motion. Not frantic, just committed. A cluster of them gathers at a shallow pool near the base of a fallen log. One by one they hop and croak once, then hop out on the other side. It's a procession, a line, a pattern so specific you can't help but stare. They've done this before. This is part of the story. You follow crouching low. The pool is shallow just enough to reflect the fractured glow from the nearby vent. The frogs leap through it like dancers crossing a stage, splashing in rhythm. Then you notice something under the water. Carved into the stone at the pool's bottom, more symbols. Spirals, frog-like footprints, and a shape like a cracked sun. You whisper, "How far back does this go?" No answer, but the frogs continue. You wade through the pool, warm, silky, not unpleasant. On the other side, the rock walls narrow into a little cove. Steam wraps around you like fog with a sense of humor. And inside that mist, you hear it, a single note. Long, sustained, unmistakably not frog. It rises and falls like a sung breath. Not mechanical, not wind. Like something beneath the earth humming one last line from a lullaby before sleep. And just like that, it stops. The frogs go quiet. The vent goes still. Even the rain, if you can call it that, ceases. You're left in silence, a thick, plush silence, not empty, full of frogs watching you, full of stone that remembers, full of heat that has chosen not to rise. You step back the frogs, parting like you're some strange priest they've decided to tolerate. The silence holds. Then one frog, just one, croaks a note so soft it sounds like a yawn, and the others join. Not in chorus, in comfort. The song changes again. A winding down tune. Like lullabies hummed after the story ends, when sleep is just beginning to bloom behind your eyes. And that's when you understand. This wasn't about warning the volcano. This was about reassuring it. Telling it, "We're still here, you're still held." The frogs didn't panic in the face of fire. They sang because of it. And the earth, lulled by their presence, decided to wait one more day before stirring again. You find yourself at the edge of another vent. Not by plan, but by some sleepy magnetism pulling you across the forest floor, like a child drawn toward a fireplace. This one isn't big, barely the size of a backyard pond, but it glows like a low ember ringed by jagged black stone that shimmers faintly with heat. And the frogs are here, dozens of them, maybe more. Spread around the vent like figures in a cave painting spaced just far enough apart to make it feel ritualistic rather than crowded. They face inward, toward the heat, toward the glow, and then you notice they're moving, not hopping, not shifting, swaying, left and right, slowly, like they're being rocked by some sound only they can hear. You step closer. Careful not to break the rhythm. The ground here pulses with warmth, nothing alarming, just that lazy oven heat that radiates out of the earth. The air is thick sweet with sulfur and soil, the kind of smell that would be disgusting anywhere else but here. It's almost nostalgic. You crouch beside a moss-covered rock trying to blend in. The frogs don't seem to care. They're busy. And the vent is whispering again, not with hisses or cracks this time, with a steady pulse of light. The lava is far below, but its presence is obvious. A dull, orange glow breathes up from the depths. It rises and falls with perfect timing. Not like breath, but like music. Like a conductor waving time beneath the surface. And the frogs follow. They croak softly in rounds. One begins, then two more join. Then a pause. Then again. It's not chaotic, it's structured. Like a round song passed between generations. Like something they remember not through memory but through instinct. You try humming along, quietly, not to mimic, but to match. And when you do, a frog to your right turns and stares. It blinks once, then returns to the glow. No judgment, just acknowledgement. Odd fact. In ancient cultures, fire rituals weren't always about destruction. In some traditions, fire was used to contain chaos, to mark time, to cleanse spaces not with water but with controlled flame. And this is the prehistoric version of that. The frogs have gathered not to flee the lava. They've gathered to honor it. You sit fully now, cross-legged, letting the heat crawl up your spine and settle in your chest like an old dog curling in your lap. The frogs sway. Some croak. Others puff their throats silently. And then one hops forward. Slowly, as if every limb is choosing the next step with the care of a tightrope walker. It perches on a small ledge of rock so close to the vent, the heat turns its skin slick with sweat. And then it begins to vibrate. Not visibly, not violently, just barely. You feel it through the soles of your feet, this low, tremoring purr, coming not from the earth, but from the frog. It's as if it's offering its own frequency to the vent. Then a second frog joins it, then a third, all spaced equally, all perched in perfect proximity to the glowing crack. And they vibrate, like tuning forks to a prehistoric chord. Historians still debate whether animals used heat and light as communicative cues before sound evolved. Some argue that early creatures responded to geothermal cues before anything else, light, vibration, and pressure. If that's true, these frogs are tapping into the oldest form of language we know. You watch heart barely beating as the vent begins to flicker more slowly. Its pulsing light drops a notch, softening, dimming. The earth exhales, the frogs pause. Then all at once they croak, not loud, not jarring, just one short, perfect burst of sound. And the light steadies. Not goes out, not erupts. Steadies. The volcano for now is still, held in place by a rhythm older than fire. You lean back on your elbows and laugh quietly to yourself. The frogs didn't come here by accident. They didn't stumble into the heat or linger too long out of stubbornness. They chose this moment, this place, this temperature, because they know, they've always known. The volcano listens, and sometimes it answers. Another breeze sweeps through, cooling your face with post-steam condensation. The frogs begin to leave, not all at once, not urgently, just one by one. The ritual is over. The song is done. The story's final verse has been croaked. You remain staring at the vent. Its glow is faint now, a warm nightlight for some mountain-sized sleeper. And in the shadows, a few frogs linger. They don't move, don't sing. They just sit, watching, like they're waiting for the dream to begin again. You don't notice the silence at first. Not because it's quiet, but because it's complete. Not a croak, not a hiss, not even the soft plink of condensation dropping onto leaves. Just you, your breath, and the faint, steady warmth that continues to rise from the vent like a forgotten kettle. You sit up straighter. The frogs are all facing away now, turned not toward the volcano but toward the rim of the basin. Their bodies are still, their heads raised just slightly, as if listening to something only they can hear or feel. Then they begin to move. Not with urgency. There's no panic, no mass exodus, just a collective decision. One by one, they hop or crawl or simply slide back toward the forest edge. Even the ones perched in trees above you begin descending, sticking to trunks with that odd Velcro hug confidence only frogs can manage. You watch them go, unsure whether to follow or stay. The heat beneath you remains gentle, reassuring. The vent glows no brighter, no dimmer. It simply is. And then from high above comes a sound. It's not thunder, not wind. It's more like a shudder. A slow, creaking groan, as though the sky itself has rolled over and remembered it, forgot to turn the page. You glance up. Nothing moves. But something's shifted. You feel it. The air presses differently. Heavier in the chest, lighter in the head. Then it hits you. The frogs are gathering again, this time at the very edge of the basin along the rocky rim of the caldera. They've formed a wide circle evenly spaced like little green hour markers on a volcanic clock face. And at the center, glowing faintly in the distance, lies the sleeping vent. You rise to your feet and walk toward them, slowly, respectfully, as if approaching a sacred altar. When you reach the edge, the view opens. The basin below, which had seemed so immediate and intimate, now stretches in quiet grandeur. A shallow bowl of ancient stone and newer steam. Cracks web through the soil like veins on a sleeping hand. The glow is steady. The steam is soft. And the frogs, they sit like pilgrims. No one croaks. No one moves. They've arrived not to sing, but to witness. You sit beside one, a pale green fellow with knobby limbs and the eyes of someone who has lived through more than one eruption. He blinks at you once slowly, as if to say, "You're not early. You're not late. You're just here." So you stay. The heat from the vent reaches you even here. A slow curling draft that brings with it the scent of minerals, moss, and memories. The kind of scent you wish you could bottle, not because it smells good, but Because it smells true. Odd fact. Many frogs use celestial cues to migrate or orient themselves. Some even navigate by starlight, not scent. Which means if you're wondering why they're all facing the same way, the answer might be written above your head, not under your feet. You glance up again. The stars, still blurred behind the veil of lingering steam, have realigned. A few brighter ones twinkle at odd angles. The Big Dipper's elbow seems just a little sharper than you remember. And the frogs, still watching. Historians still debate whether these natural pilgrimages to calderas, hot springs, stone circles were for celebration, sacrifice, or simple survival. Maybe all three, maybe none. But the pattern is undeniable. Creatures gather, heat rises, and someone always remembers. You think of all the ancient volcanoes that slept too long, the ones that whispered lullabies until they screamed. The frogs likely remember those too. Tonight, though, there's no scream, no fire, just a hush. The frogs remain motionless for what feels like hours. You do too. Then, without signal or sound, one begins to croak. Not loud, just once. And the others answer. A single soft ripple of sound moves clockwise around the rim, each frog adding its note like a flick of a candle flame. One circle, just one, and then stillness. The final croak fades into the air, like a last sentence in a very long book. The frogs stay a while longer, then begin to leave again, each in their own direction. Quiet, calm, duty done. You sit alone now, the last to rise, the last to listen. The volcano does not rumble, it rests. And for a moment, just a flicker, you feel as though it dreamed of you too. You wait until the last frog disappears into the underbrush. Not hurried, not anxious, just gone. A ripple fading into the vast pond of moss and stone and time. Their chorus lingers faintly in your memory, more echo than sound now. The tap-tap rhythms, the hush of croaks, the pulses beneath your feet. They've settled into a kind of internal metronome, steadying your breath even now as the forest leans back into itself. The vent glows less now, not dark, but resting. Its orange light no longer pulses, it simply glows like a candle that knows dawn is coming. You're not sure when you stood up, or when you began walking again. But you're on the rim, tracing the path the frogs once filled. The ash has thinned into soft dust beneath your boots. Each step leaves no footprint, only warmth. And as you walk, you hear it. One last croak. Close, familiar. You turn and find it. A frog, just one. Not special in any obvious way, brownish-green, with the same sleepy expression they all seem to wear like ancestral wisdom. But it looks up at you with something that almost feels old, as if it's the last to leave because it wanted to be sure you understood. You nod. It blinks slowly. Then it croaks once sharply and hops toward the trees, gone. And the quiet is absolute. There's no danger in it, just peace. The volcano, lulled by the ritual, has returned to its dreaming. Its slow subterranean breath now curled gently under the roots of the forest, under the cracks in the stone, under the ancient mud that holds the memory of every foot that's walked here, even yours. You step down the trail past warm rocks and cooling steam. Your skin carries the scent of sulfur and moss. Your boots are stained with ash. Your fingers remember the rhythm tap, 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 croak, and somewhere deep in your chest, so does your heart. Odd fact. Some frog species can live over 20 years, long enough to remember droughts, floods, even the first tremor of a sleeping volcano's stirrings. Long enough to keep the story going. And maybe that's what this really is, a story, told not in words, but in pulses, in silence, in the dance between heat and shadow. Historians still debate whether volcanoes have shaped us more than we know, whether our myths of fire gods and sleeping beasts come not from imagination but memory. You think the frogs would laugh at that, because they never forgot. They're not scared of the volcano. They sing to it, and now so do you. You reach the forest's edge just as the first real stars begin to cut through the thinning steam. The air is clearer now. No more false rain. Just night. Honest, quiet, and full of frogs somewhere out there singing softly to themselves. You don't look back at the crater. You don't need to. It's still there, still warm, still listening. And tomorrow maybe the frogs will return. Not because they must, but because someone has to sing the story. So did volcanoes ever tell bedtime stories to frogs? Maybe not with mouths and lips and plot twists, but deep in the cracked skin of this ancient land you've seen something else, a rhythm, a language older than sound. Frogs, those unlikely narrators with blinking eyes and balloon throats, have been carrying a story long before we had books or bedtime rituals. They gather not in fear but in memory. They sing not to escape but to soothe. The volcano doesn't demand worship. It asks only to be heard, and the frogs in their own quiet way listen back, through pulses of heat and tap-tap patterns, through croaks arranged like lullabies and footfalls placed like prayers. You've followed them across ashen steam through illusion rain and whispering vents, learning their patterns, their pauses, their purpose. And in return, the volcano waits, sleeps, because someone still sings to it. Maybe the frogs are its dream catchers, its caretakers. Or maybe they're just frogs, funny, rhythmic, oddly wise frogs who've spent generations reading the steam and humming to stone. You've been there now, sat at the rim, heard the hush, felt the breath of something vast and asleep beneath your feet. The next time you hear a frog at night croaking in the dark, don't shush it. It might be singing the earth back to sleep.